Hello and welcome back for another episode of In Conversation With. Today we have with us Haris Jawaid, the founder and CEO of Eximus Education, an award-winning tutor. Through his advocacy for equitable education, collaboration with sector leaders, and mentorship of emerging students, Haris continues to drive change in the tutoring sector, striving for an inclusive system where every student has the opportunity to succeed. So let's hear more from him. Could you start first by telling our audience a little bit more about you and how you got into tutoring?
I think even when I was a student, I was very academically sound. So not only an academic high achiever, but also someone who would really understand things and concepts just for the sake of receiving knowledge rather than just passing the exam. This would mean that even if I was doing something which was like fairly simple, I would try to really get down into it. So I did economics at university at Warwick, and then masters in economics at the London School of Economics. Um, but I did a brief stint at United Nations in the Economic and Social Council. Um, and then I went into consulting with Deloitte in their London practice, did a bit of that, and then went into banking in Liverpool Street. But all that while, I was tutoring. Since 2011, I was tutoring because that's something I really enjoyed. So whilst I had full-time careers, now Deloitte was pretty hectic in the sense that we would work, and then I had to do my chartered accountancy exams as well. But yet I was still tutoring. It was only until the end of 2019 that I decided to give up my full-time career and to get into tutoring full-time. Right now, many people aren't able to take this leap because I had a strong family business background. I was one of the lucky ones who could actually do what I really wanted to do. But I became a full-time tutor, and this was kind of like not that of an alien concept, but quite uncommon compared to how it is probably now. My peers would say, what you're doing, you got such a good banking career and this and that, and that's what most graduates want to do in the UK, banking and consulting, right?
Yeah.
But I became a full-time tutor, and I would tutor so tutoring would normally start in the afternoon because you know mostly students who they don't want tutors to come in the morning, right? It's probably at school or university. And that's how I got into tutoring. Now, in that whole time, I worked with a lot of tutoring companies, the big boys out there. And so whilst I was naturally good at it, but I also, got some training, got some feedbacks in the events that I would go. And in that process, I also realized that tutoring is different to teaching, a tutor's job is kind of like to cement the gaps in a student's understanding rather than to give them another lecture. And because I was so interactive and had good sort of interpersonal skills, that really allowed me to excel and build those relationships. But yeah, and then I didn't look back. So I think since then I didn't go for any other career. I've been in the world of tutoring and then Eximus education and all that started to come about. Yeah.
Amazing. And how did you start Eximus Education?
Right. So 2000 and 2021, sort of around Christmas time, um, as I was doing my full-time tutoring, and I had been doing it since 2011, so a lot of years of doing it. What normally typically happens is you have a big client base, and then you can't tutor everybody, and then you start to ask your friends, and that's exactly what happened with me. However, a key motivation was the fact that what I realized was it's really the elites and the upper middle class and the upper class can actually afford tutoring in the UK. So typically the clients were in West London, right? And then it was the masses who actually needed it the most. And they were sort of deprived because of the affordability angle. And that's why I set up Eximus Education, because I saw a gap in the market. I was like, 400 tutoring companies are out there catering for the same um, demographic because of the affordability problem, starting from £70, £80. And that's where the masses cannot afford it. And because of this gap, that's why I started Eximus Education, where I could bring tutoring to the masses.
It's really cool. The fact that Eximus Education it's an award-winning social enterprise, which is like I want to know more about that as well. And also want to know how did you go about bridging the attainment gap that you were talking about in the UK?
Sure. So as a private tutor myself, I had seen, the ultra high net worth people, because I'd seen that whole world of how the majority of tutoring companies, the world that they're catering to, and because of this gap, what I realized was um, the key ingredient that was missing between sort of scaling this to the masses was affordability. So I'm pretty sure all the tutoring companies out there would be very good in quality, would be very good in accessibility, would have a wide network of tutors, but affordability has been the missing ingredient, right? And just because they can't get a good tutor is not going to charge anything less than £150, £45, if it's just primary school, right? That is expensive for the masses, That's expensive for the average person out there. And not that tutoring companies really wanted to go for the high end. It was just that the way the tutoring works is, you have tutors who are not your employees on most occasions, and you ask them, and whatever rate that they require, you just keep a cut, and then that's what you charge the client. But because the tutors' rates has always been understandably high, because they're graduates, whether they're studying themselves or they're really good at what they do, their opportunity cost in terms of doing something else is also very high. And so because it's very difficult to find a tutor at a really affordable rate, that's how the industry has shaped up. And I realize, and that's what I've proven in the 3 years of Eximus Education, is once you tackle this affordability piece, that's the best way to cater and to help and contribute towards the attainment gap, right? The attainment gap is not there because there's not good the good individuals out there who can explain things well or who are really good academically themselves. The attainment gap exists because of affordability, at least in the world of tutoring. And I think also in the schools as well, which is why you see a big gap between those who end up in the parliament and they largely happen to be from private schools, if you look at our prime ministers. So because I wanted to target this affordability angle, that's how I believe we are one of the sort of the leading organizations or enterprises out there um, who are contributing through tutoring in lowering this gap, because we want to bring affordable tutors to the masses who actually need it the most, uh, rather than those who already go to good schools.
Two key takeaways here, affordability and accessibility, because you want to make it accessible for people out there. And it's just like I said, it's incredible work that you guys are doing. I also want to talk about safeguarding because, it is such an important topic of conversation, and rightly so. What, according to you, are some of the challenges and some hurdles that companies face when it comes to compliance with safeguarding?
I think the biggest point is the nature of the engagement itself. So if I was a bank, the people who would be serving my customers would be employees of my organization, right? So I can exercise supervision and control over them, right? So that's very easy for me to sort of ensure, not only quality, but also the fact that they deal in a professional and ethical way with my customers because they're my employees. So I give them training. The problem with the tutoring world, where one operates as an agency, is where tutors are not your employees. You cannot exercise supervision and control, right? You cannot tell them you have to do it this way and this way. So because they're freelancers, that's where the problem originates. And therefore, what one can do as an agency is when it comes to recruitment, right? That's where they have to have the biggest and the strongest walls in determining who is appropriate and good quality in terms of the tutors who they will put forward to your clients. After that, it's kind of like a bit more difficult because what you can't do is to be present in all tutoring lessons, whether it's in person or online. I think even recording the lessons, I feel sometimes can breach the privacy angles as well. So I think that's where the challenge comes of safeguarding. So it's not just the fact that there are bad people out there, or it's just the organizations don't want to enforce or they're poor at ensuring safeguarding. I think it's just the nature of the business itself, where you're operating as an agency model. Um, what you can't expect is all tutoring companies to hire and to put all these tutors on their payroll. That's just going to kill the whole business. That's not how this business works. I'm sure there must be other businesses out there who operate in a very similar way of agency model. And I think that's just the nature of the agency model that creates those challenges around safeguarding. But you can put certain controls in it, which probably I can talk about later on in this conversation.
I think that's a very important point that you've made, that in this business, it's so hard to put all these policies in place, and keep a track of your tutors, because it's just they're not your employees. But yeah, just on that, what are some of the policies and procedures, or something that you can kind of put in place to make sure that you are compliant and you keep safeguarding in the forefront?
So those policies and those safeguarding steps can be divided into two sections, right? So one would be your preventative and one would be your detective. So let's talk about the preventative side first. So that's where recruitment has to be really thorough, right? So the very moment when you're hiring tutors and actually selecting the ones who actually made even to the interview stage, that you not only are assessing their quality, but also their applicability and suitability to work with young people. So that has to be really, really rigorous. I'm hoping that there's no organization out there who put a tutor on their books who they've not met, or interviewed. I'll be shocked if no one's doing that. And that's absolutely, absolutely essential. Because in a conversation, when you see someone, you can get a lot of things, how they operate, how they behave, how they conduct themselves. So recruitment is the biggest step in terms of your preventative control. You can have lots of policies and procedures. It's very easy to actually get them, but I think the challenge comes in enforcing them. So one bit that most organizations I hope they do is that they at least make the tutor aware of what the good practices are, what the KCISE key guidelines are of keeping children safe in terms of what you can do, what the law says, what the best way is, and making sure the tutor has read and has agreed and demonstrated an understanding, whether it's an online module of training or it's a written piece where they are at least aware of what is required. I think referencing is another key bit, is that you must seek professional references about the people you're putting on your roster. Is someone of good repute, is able to vouch for this person, saying this guy is fine to work with children or work with students, and his applicability as a tutor. Then credentials are also important. Someone who has had a professional job or good academic background, sort of those all things add up to a person's credibility as well. And I think DBS obviously is a must-have. You must do a check, enhanced DBS. So that will sort of show you on all aspects of that person's credit history, police records, etc. I think most organizations, I'm hoping, do all these things. But I think that the interview, meeting the tutor themselves, I think that's super, super important, is where one can really see that, can I put this person in front of my clients, right? So those are kind of your most common preventative controls that one needs to have in place. In your detective controls, one needs to be really in touch and be aware of how the tutor is doing, right? So that not only in terms of the number of hours that they're delivering or completing with their students, which acts as a good sign that they are not bad as a tutor, because if, customers, when they have a lesson with them that they want to continue, that is a sign that, they're doing a good job. But equally, what the parents say about the tutor, and just seeking regular feedback from the child, from the parent, and all those sort of things act as detective controls. So I'll give you an example. So if in Eximus Education, whilst we are really strict on recruitment, so 2.5% is our historical acceptance ratio of the people who we onboard, but equally, we are very rigorous in terms of who we keep on our books, right? So if a tutor we find is constantly, they have this lesson and then the student goes away and then constantly, then we find that something's going wrong. And we are very equally quick to mark them as dormant or rejected, because we don't want to, we want to make sure our quality and all that stuff is really right up to the mark. So those are your sort of ways that one can ensure, good compliance with safeguarding, your preventative and your detective.
That's amazing. And I believe this is also the recruitment process that you follow at Eximus Education as well. So that's probably the step by step that you've just described.
So not entirely. So the things that we do, I would say, are much more rigorous. On the preventative side, I don't think most tutoring companies would have such high or such low acceptance ratio. I mean, 2.5% means that out of every 100, two or three tutors make it to our books, right? So that's not typically what the average would be out there. And I think one reason why that is because I've been a tutor myself. So I think the standards that I expect of myself, I think those are I whether rightly or wrongly apply and expect from other tutors as well. So what I really look for, or my team really looks for, is if the person's like, Harvard graduate or Cambridge or whatever, but if he cannot tutor someone, he might be really good in teaching someone, he might know all that stuff, really smart person. But if he cannot tutor someone, and all of our tutors have to give demo lessons, which are recorded and then evaluated, then he's not good for us, right? So tutoring is different to teaching. Tutoring is really filling in the gaps. In a tutoring engagement, I believe 50% or more of the conversation has to come from the student. It's the student who has to explain, and the tutor needs to fill in the gaps. That's what a parent looks for in a tutor, because otherwise the student would have just done equally well in school. They're getting that information in school anyway. Why would they go for a tutor? It's because they're struggling either because of confidence or lack of attention or whatever it is in school. So that's something that we're really keen on when it comes to recruitment. In terms of documentation, I think we're also very, very stringent as well. So we not only seek their DBS and their sort of identity document, we're really, really keen on getting their academic credential and any gap that they see. So for example, on CV, if you've said that I have a certificate in AI, right? We want that certificate as well. Because if someone is putting anything, even if they have a degree and everything, but if someone's putting something and they don't have it, then that's a reject for us, right? So that also is a way of how we check ethics and accurate information. We really put a whole bunch of documents about the tutor on our repository as well. In terms of detective controls, that we have constant communication with the parent or the student themselves, right? So every lesson, every trial, whatever it is, we know what's happening because we have on our sort of joint window where we get visibility. The tutor is not allowed to have conversation or to set up anything with the client, which is beyond our visibility. In some respects, this can slow down the process, but we really want this for the sake of not only quality, but also safeguarding. It's very difficult to do this. And we really put in a lot of money in availability of our team to be able to do this and our technology. But I think this is something we've stood by from day one, and even to this day, where our client have increased by 300% or 300x, that we still do this is for every customer, our team member is aware of what's happening, how the customer is doing. So any feedback that a parent has or a customer has, let's say the tutor hasn't turned up, we immediately ring the call and intervene in this process.
No, I think that's so interesting. The fact that, you've got your employees always just, very on it. It can't have been easy to kind of make sure that every client is taken care of. So that's really amazing to hear. And also, like you've been with us for a really long time now, almost 3 years. So I
Yes.
want to ask you about TutorCruncher as well. How did you find out about TutorCruncher?
2011, when since 2010 actually, that I've been tutoring myself. That's when I used to use TutorCruncher as a tutor, and I've seen the journey of TutorCruncher from just being one organization to all the way being the most commonly used software for tutoring companies in the UK. Not only in the UK, but I think even beyond UK, people use TutorCruncher as well. So I've seen the tutoring side of being a tutor and using it from that angle. And I remember that whilst I was a tutor, there were other tutoring companies who tried to have some other softwares. And from a tutor, it just didn't work because when we used to log our lessons on the other softwares, it just had always issues. But we always liked TutorCruncher. The feedback that we would give to them is TutorCruncher, everybody's using it. And the fact that you can have your global profile as a tutor, and you can sort of, if you're working with multiple agencies, then you can sort of log in. It makes it really easy. So I've always liked it as a tutor. So when we set up Eximus Education, it was no brainer for me to actually deploy TutorCruncher for us as an agency now as well. So from day one all the way to this day, and I think for the foreseeable future, TutorCruncher has suited us really well. The reason why is because it's built for tutoring companies.
Yeah.
That's really key. Whilst you have your other CRMs, which are generic, you might have to customize and really work on. I think TutorCruncher is a software that is built for a tutoring agency. That's kind of like the primary reason why it was created. So yeah, so it's a great aid. It helps us a lot. It's our central repository for everything of tutoring hours, customer side, tutor side, and for us as management side as well to generate reports. And in that process, I've seen TutorCruncher expanding. I've interacted with multiple team members of yours. So yeah, I'm really happy with it.
Oh, very glad to hear it. And yeah, we are constantly growing. And it also feels so good to see all of our companies, all of our clients growing as well, because we grow when you grow. So yeah, that's really lovely to hear. In terms of safeguarding as well, how would you say TutorCruncher has helped shape the way you run your business and also enhance safeguarding?
Right. So I think this would obviously be different from organization to organization, but I think I can just say with respect to Eximus Education. So I think one key aspect that it's really good at is the cloud hosted repository. So you're not saving all those documents and all that, credentials and all that things around your tutors and your clients on your hard drives, which is where as a IT risk advisor, that's what I used to do in Deloitte. That's really, really bad. And it brings all sorts of risks for you organization wide and actually from a GDPR point of view as well. I think the fact that it's sort of hosted on the cloud um, and accessible if you have internet and from any machine, it's not on your computer. I think that's a really good aspect about it. Another thing that has helped that is always available. So I can hardly think of any time when TutorCruncher was down and we couldn't access it or we couldn't, or our information got deleted. It's never been like that. I think it's pretty robust and reliable. The other thing is that you can generate all sorts of reports around it. So the way it has helped us is when we want to sort of go into evaluating a tutor's performance, whether how well they're doing, or to get an idea about whether to retain a tutor or not, we can just generate a report about them. And let's say we see a tutor and you can see that, he's been given 10 customers and he's only had 3 hours for each and they all go away. That's a clear sign for us that we're going to put them in the rejected category. And that's where TutorCruncher helps us. It allows us to see that information, right? I think it's also good that it has that an inbuilt digital whiteboard as well, where anybody who doesn't have so their own technology that they can use our portal and to get and access that as well. Another interesting thing that is really good about TutorCruncher is that certain documents that only you can see as admin about tutors. So let's say it's some feedback that you just want your management team to see about a tutor or the reason for them being dormant or rejected. And you can just sort of take those notes. And I think what we also found out was certain documents that you can keep about a tutor in their repository that only you can delete, for example, right? So if let's say they've signed something and you don't want the tutor to be deleting the document that they've signed, that's where you can put those controls as well. So I think overall, we're quite happy with TutorCruncher, the software.
That is so great to hear. And I completely agree with you. I mean, I think it's so helpful to have everything under one roof. And a lot of our clients say this as well. It just makes life a lot easier. So that's really lovely to hear. I do have one final question for you. What's next for Eximus Education? Where do you see yourself going from here?
Eximus Education, the very reason why it was founded remains the reason for its continuation for the foreseeable future. Affordability angle, right? Good tutoring being available at affordable prices, right? Now, why is this a problem that remains? Affordability is a problem because you have good tutors or people who are really good in academics tend to charge really high prices, right? Now there are other organizations that who are non-profit or are use volunteer tutors or use tutors who are university students or people who just want to do it as a side income or a side hustle. There will always be those organizations. But Eximus Education believes that that's not the answer to the puzzle. That doesn't solve the affordability angle. Because those people, the longevity of them remaining tutors with the families or being professional in their fields is always going to be an issue, right? When I was in university, I was doing certain things in terms of earning money, but I didn't choose to build a career out of it. Fortunately or unfortunately, across the world, you know, people graduate and they don't choose to be tutors. They might choose to be teachers, for example, but the top universities, produce people who, at least in the UK, tend to be in banking, consulting, accountancy, right? And so you'll always have this piece missing of the top people who choose to be tutors and yet be affordable. We want to find these people, whether it's overseas or in the UK, who choose to be teachers, and we want to convince them that you have a talent and there's this tutoring that you can also do. Now, typically with British teachers who are overseas, you tend to find the affordability to be much better than people in the UK, naturally because of cost of living. And that's where Eximus Education comes, is to try and spread the awareness and try to get these people who are really good professionals of their field and yet affordable and match them with the masses. We don't want to go down the volunteering route or non-profit or side hustlers. We don't want to recruit them. We at Eximus Education do not hire people who are still in university. We want to hire people who are teachers, who have access to the academic information, the syllabus and all that stuff, and receive their 6 monthly training from the examination boards, and they are professionals of their field. And that's where longevity and sustainability of the model comes in. That's what we want to do. Now, in 3 years that we've been in existence, what we have done is we've set up those procedures, those policies, those processes in place where Eximus Education is now a self-reliant machine, right? So we have built those teams, we built that training, we've done those recruitments, we build those systems in place where it's not dependent on me or any one person. So 3 years down the line, everybody is clear on the mission. Everybody is aware of how to recruit, of how to train. We build good credibility with them. We know them as friends. And those tutors happen to be the same ones who we hired on day one. In the 3 years, we've grown a lot in a sustainable way. We remain a social enterprise. I don't even take a salary from the business, where we want to really have a self-reliant organization. We want to provide affordable professional tutors to the industry in the UK. And we want to keep it to the UK for now. We have no aspirations to go beyond the UK because that's a market we know, that's a market where we belong to. And that's an industry where at least we want to, make a big difference to.
Well, I just wanted to say a big thank you to you and your team for the amazing work that you guys are doing. It's truly changing so many lives. And thank you so much, Haris, for taking the time to speak with me today and sharing all these incredible insights. We wish you all the very best. And also, for anyone watching, if you are a tutoring company and you want to share your story with us, please feel free to reach out to me. The details are in the description below. So, bye for now, and I'll see you next time.